Welcome to Preceptor Orientation. It is wonderful to have you here. I recognize that we are all joining from various unceded territories of different Indigenous people and nations. I'm a first-generation Canadian, and I grew up learning and playing on the lands of the Tsawwassen and Kwantlen nations. I'm joining today from Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, Solo, Squamish, Chemainus, and Coast Salish nations, as well as the Hul'qumi'num Treaty Group. I personally learned so much from our dietetic students. One of our current students, who themselves is Indigenous, has helped me to start to learn and maybe more importantly to unlearn. And they recently shared with me some of their favorite Indigenous artists. So this gave me the motivation to celebrate with you a couple Indigenous creators who I've come to enjoy following and supporting. The print on the left is by Michelle Stoney, who's a Gitxsan artist. Through her art, she also raises money for causes that are important to her. On the right is a screen capture of the first of a series of really awesome and beautiful works and books by author and artist Brett Hewson, also of the Gitxsan Nation. The books follow the life cycle of wildlife found on or near the Gitxsan Nation. Their handles are on the screen, and you're welcome to check them out. By the end of today, we hope that you can walk away with a clear sense of who the UBC Dietetics undergraduate team is, as well as an introduction to the program's vision, mission, values in the context of practice education, what the Year 5 placements will look like for you as a preceptor and for our students, including learning outcomes, and for the placements, how students are evaluated, and weekly schedules. This is the third preceptor orientation we have given during this academic year for Year 5 practice education. The focus of today's presentation is on Term 2 activities, which run from January until May 2023. We're also going to talk about what all of our roles and responsibilities are during practice education, including you as a preceptor, the student, and us here at UBC. And finally, we will wrap up by sharing where and how you can learn more if you still have questions. I am Tamar Kafka. Ali Browse and I are here today, and we are two of the UBC dietetic educators with the dietetics undergraduate program. We are really fortunate to have 4 of us working in the program in this role now. So in addition to myself, Ali, Kara Vogt, and Gordon Lee are also part of the team. As educators with the dietetics program at UBC, we are also course instructors, the dietetics practice education courses, including all of the Year 5 placements that you will be precepting for. We will therefore have a more direct role in practice education than we have had in the past, and I will elaborate more on this in a bit. Ultimately, there are 4 of us here at UBC, and we will be your direct contacts for anything to do with placement planning and student activities or performance during student placements with you. The UBC Dietetics program is committed to advancing equity, diversity, inclusion for the program, our students, and the dietetics profession. This is a photo of some of our dietetics students who have recently completed their first nutrition care placement after their first year in the dietetics program. They are the first group of students who completed a placement in our new 6-week placement model. And they're a reminder to me of the community of wonderful students we get to work with and learn from in the program, and the incredible talent of our students and their passion to embrace and be a part of something new. We're all coming to precepting with personal, social, and structural biases, some implicit or unconscious. I wanted to mention this in order to recognize that who we are and our journey of life experiences will likely influence our perspective and approach to precepting. We have had 2 equity, diversity, and inclusion consultants review our dietetics program, and we have been able to make substantial changes to almost every aspect of our program to enhance fairness and address some of the inequities in our processes. There's always lots more work to do, and we are not yet finished. For some perspective from a practice education point of view, more than 1/3 of our students have circumstances that influence where and how they do their placements. This is an important reflection of the varied lives, experiences, and abilities of our students. We have a policy for the UBC Dietetics undergraduate program called Respectful Learning Environments. And in that policy, we define respectful learning environments as those that are welcoming to participants with diverse lived experiences, actively anti-racist, and committed to improvement. These environments are free from all forms of discrimination, bullying, or harassment. The program takes concrete steps to encourage and enable respectful learning environments in all program activities. We are sharing this policy with you and also talked about it with our Year 5 students during orientation. We'd welcome you to review the policy, as we will uphold the policy throughout practice education and expect students and preceptors to honor this in the way that they engage with each other. The policy defines and interprets an understanding of respectful learning environments and actions that can be taken in the event that you or a student observes or experiences mistreatment with regards to the program activities. When you registered for this preceptor orientation, we asked you to indicate topics you have learned about or done training on, as well as topics you're interested in learning more about. We wanted to share the results with you, as this can be helpful information for us to know to help identify and prioritize education sessions and resources in the future, as a way for you and students to feel more prepared for educational environments that are supportive and inclusive. You are asked to select all that apply, and you'll see that these add up to more than 100% for that reason. In terms of topics you've learned about, 30% of you indicated that you have done some learning on the topic of implicit bias, 36% on anti-racism, 54% related to Indigenous truth and reconciliation, 12% disability accessibility, and 12% other. In terms of topics you want to learn more about, 57% of you indicated implicit bias, 54% anti-racism, 41% Indigenous truth and reconciliation, 52% disability accessibility, and 13% other. The UBC Dietetics program has a vision and mission statement as well as core values, all of which provide a foundation for the program's commitment to advancing equity, diversity, and inclusion as it relates to the program's vision of inspiring learners to advance dietetic practice and food systems. Our core values of justice, integrity, inclusion, collaboration, and community focus drive our approaches to program planning, delivery, evaluation, and community engagement. You can find these on our website. I did want to clarify some terminology so that we all have a shared understanding of what Ali and I are talking about when we use these words. We are no longer using the term internship. Instead, we use the term practice education. The reason for this is that student placements are actually UBC courses with specific learning outcomes, syllabus, assignments, and grades, pass-fail in this case. It is a progressive learning experience, and students are in a learning environment which is intended to prepare them for entry to dietetic practice. The time students spend with you are called placements or practice education placements. Each placement is 6 weeks. You will no longer hear the terms module or rotations.
So Tamar provided an overview of the program's goals and intentions with practice education placements. And now I'm going to give an overview of what Year 5 placements are going to look like for this academic year. So for this year, students in their final year of the undergrad dietetics program will be completing 6 by 6 week placements. In placements 1 to 5, students will complete 4 nutrition care focused placements and 1 population health placement. And for placement 6, all students will do a management and leadership focused placement. Today's session will focus on the nutrition care and population health placements, particularly for placements 3, 4, and 5. Each placement is a progressive learning experience where students work towards building their skills and demonstrating placement competencies during each placement. Student schedules are built to ensure that students get learning experiences to meet entry to practice dietetic competencies. And while we have schedules mapped out for students several months in advance, we also recognize that there are many reasons that placements may need to change. And so for this reason, students are told the location of each placement in advance. However, specific placement details, such as practice area, are typically only released to students about 2 months in advance of the placement. We often get a lot of questions about what orientation students have done before starting practice education placements. So I'm going to spend a moment talking about the onboarding and orientation students are completing before coming to you for their placement. All students are required to complete core orientation modules for student placements that are consistent for all health professional students in BC. The Student Practice Education Core Orientation, or SPECO modules, are all completed on the Learning Hub and are actually quite similar to new staff requirements. They include things such as information privacy, safety at work, violence prevention, code red, waste management, etc. And the health authority student practice offices have also developed great web pages and online resources for student orientation that have helped guide onboarding requirements. So in addition to the general SPECO modules, students will have to complete organization-specific prerequisites as well. And if you're curious about these additional organization-specific requirements, you can reach out to us at UBC and/or ask the student in placement with you. As part of preparation for placements, students are also prompted to email preceptors 1 to 2 weeks before the placement starts to briefly introduce themselves, confirm when and where to meet on the first day, and inquire about typical work hours. If a preceptor has questions about when a student is coming or wants to connect with the student more than this 1 to 2 weeks ahead of time, they can reach out to the UBC Dietetics team to get contact information. In addition to completing all the mandatory student placement orientation, students also have attended a UBC LED orientation. This occurred 1 week before students started their first placement in September 2022. It was done over Zoom as students had already relocated to different regions of the province if they needed to in preparation for starting placements. I've included some of the topics that we covered with students for your reference here, but as you can see, the orientation is really not site specific. It really focuses on orienting students to practice education courses as a whole. Next, I wanted to introduce you to some of the specifics of the practice education courses and the resources available for preceptors. Preceptor Resources can be found on our program website under the Preceptor tab. The link is posted on the screen as a reference. If you have any difficulty locating resources on our program website, then please do reach out to us. When you're on the Preceptor Resource section site of our website, you'll see that we have a number of documents here. So we have a practice education overview document that does highlight the new model of practice education placements. There's also a one-page preceptor practice education guide that highlights what preceptors should do before and after placement. And the things that we're going to look specifically at today, I've started here. So we're going to look at the Term 2 course schedule. We're going to look at the evaluation form, and we're going to look at the example project ideas for population health preceptors. So I now want to introduce everyone to the course syllabus. On our website, you'll see the course syllabus posted for Term 1 and for Term 2 of practice education. And for today's orientation, I want to encourage you to reference the Term 2 syllabus. It's also called FNH 490 or 497E. That probably doesn't have a lot of meaning. It's more for our reference on the back end too. So look for the Term 2 syllabus there. The syllabus is the primary document that's used to outline what students will be doing in practice education placements, as well as how learning will be assessed. And the key components that we're going to review today include the course syllabus, the course structure, the learning outcomes and activities, the approach to assessment, and finally, the weekly course schedule. So I'll start with the course structure. Students are typically on site at practice education partner organizations Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, and they engage in virtual learning with course instructors on Thursdays. Students have been informed that in some placement settings, preceptors may work on Saturday and or Sunday, and if this is the case, they would be expected to work on these days. However, they are only at a placement site for 4 days a week total, And again, Thursdays are the required education sessions with UBC, and therefore they are not on site with preceptors on Thursdays. So to elaborate a little bit more on the course structure, I wanted to emphasize that because students will be doing 6-week placements, this will allow them more time to orientate to a practice setting and the preceptor's role, and then to practice and develop their nutrition care or the population health competencies. In addition to working on entry to practice competencies in the practice setting, students will also complete assignments and participate in workshops to supplement their learning and allow additional opportunities for instructors to assess their overall learning. So next, I'm going to highlight the course learning outcomes for all Year 5 nutrition care and population health placements. So you should note that learning outcome number 1 is really only applicable for nutrition care focused placements, and learning outcome number 2 is applicable for population health focused placements. So these 8 learning outcomes have been developed using the integrated competencies for dietetic education and practice, or ICDEPs, which are a specific document that outlines the entry to practice expectations for dietetic students. So the ICDEP document has specific practice competencies and performance indicators that we've grouped and condensed into these 8 learning outcomes for practice education placements. And then students and preceptors will evaluate overall placement competencies using these 8 learning outcomes. This approach also allows a much simpler and shorter evaluation form for placements, which is something that students and preceptors have been asking for and feedback we gather annually. So again, I'll pause for a moment just as you take a look at the 8 learning outcomes on this screen. And then we're going to move on to assignments. So in the syllabus, you'll notice that there are some different assignments and learning activities that students need to complete throughout the term. For term 2, the assignments are on the screen here, and we did not plan to talk through the assignments in detail today, but really wanted to make you aware of them. Students may use placement time to work on their assignments when appropriate, and students are prompted to inform you about the assignments they are working on when they meet with you during week 1, so you are aware of what they are doing. Assignments are intended to help meet harder to achieve competencies related to the learning outcomes and ICDEP, and are submitted to the UBC course instructors, which are myself, Tamar, Gordon, Kara, and at defined dates. So we will then mark them and provide students specific feedback. This weighs into their overall grade, which is ultimately a pass-fail. And then I did want to mention that students access all of the course resources using a UBC-based web platform called Canvas. And this is where they're able to, again, access course material and share resources and submit assignments to course instructors as well. So the final part of the syllabus that I wanted to highlight was the course schedule. So you'll see at the top, it outlines the week and the placement number. You will also then look at the specific placement you will be supporting and use it as a guide to find suggested learning activities that build on each other and ultimately support students to meet the course learning outcomes. Remember that students also have assignments that they're working on, which will help kind of complement them to meet these learning outcomes. Students are expected to review the weekly schedule as well and to communicate the goals as they relate to the learning activities and learning outcomes. It's really helpful to protect time in the first first and second week to map out placement time and some of the important learning activities with students. Some of the example placement activities that you'll see when you review the syllabus and look specifically at the weekly schedule include things such as, prompts to conduct nutrition assessments for assigned patients or clients, a prompt to identify relevant food service operations at the site and reflect on similarities or differences to previous placements. Also spending time with interprofessional colleagues to observe their roles. And then population health preceptors might find it helpful to reference the population health project example document on our website. And this document contains some sample project ideas that can be used to help students meet the population health specific learning outcomes of assessing food and nutrition needs of communities and populations and contributing to population health service delivery. Typically, students will need to complete several small projects or 1 to 2 larger projects that have multiple components to them. For those of you that have been population health preceptors in the past, placements in this domain have not changed much. And the project idea list is similar to what we've used for past population health placements. And then this is the new student performance evaluation form. It's quite different than what you have seen in the past if you've been a preceptor with the UBC Dietetics program before. Some of the key differences include it is entirely student-led and completed, so there are no preceptor portions of this form to complete. The same evaluation form is used for every placement, regardless of whether or not they are doing a nutrition care or a population health placement. The student will start a new form for every distinct placement, so they will start with a blank form when they come to you, and they will complete it twice, once for the midpoint progress and once for the end of placement progress discussion. There are no more ratings or rankings of performance, and the evaluation form is reviewed by students and preceptors, then submitted to the UBC course instructor after. If there are any concerns at all about a student's performance, we want to have conversations about it. We consider you, the student themselves, and us at UBC to work together to identify when we need to talk about student performance support needs in more detail.
There are many people and groups involved in practice education. We have a dedicated policy that articulates the roles and responsibilities of the program, preceptors, students, and other partners with regards to practice education placements, which is called the Practice Education Roles and Responsibilities Policy. I'm going to highlight some of the key roles involved in practice education. You might want to check out the policy if you're craving more information. In terms of student roles, students are expected to take an active and self-directed role in their learning. UBC educators and preceptors provide structure and support for student learning, but ultimately students need to take ownership of demonstrating learning outcomes and communicating proactively to you as their preceptors or to their UBC instructor when any barriers to learning arise. Students fill out their evaluation forms and lead the evaluation meetings, submitting all evaluation documents to us at UBC. We use the term self-directed learning here, and we want to highlight what this means and what this can look like in practice education. Through the practice education courses, including during orientation, during our Thursday Zoom classes, and embedded in the assignments and course learning outcomes, we have integrated aspects of self-directed learning for students. This is not something you as preceptors are ultimately responsible for planning, as it is an integrated aspect of the program. But you are involved in facilitating learning activities based on the concepts of student-directed learning, so it can be helpful for you to be aware of what we mean when we say that students are responsible for their own learning. We've provided some examples here. We encourage students to regularly assess their readiness to learn. This involves students determining what they need to feel ready to show up to learn and practice education on a given day. and putting the supports in place to do so. Some examples might include assessing their own health and wellness and getting supports in place to ensure they're able to meet program learning outcomes. It also means being in a position to be able to accept constructive feedback and to be able to actively participate in self-reflection. Students are also required to take ownership of their learning through self-evaluation and setting achievable learning goals for themselves. This is embedded especially in the midpoint and end of placement evaluations, where students lead the process of thinking through and communicating their learning experiences, seeking feedback, and setting achievable goals, and reporting on their achievement of their goals. Ultimately, students need to be engaged in their own learning. They need to understand their own ways of learning, including how to obtain and integrate new knowledge, how to apply integrated knowledge to new situations, and how to self-motivate to meet their learning outcomes. In connecting this to what your role is as a preceptor and the support you provide to our students in the context of self-directed learning, you select and offer learning experiences in your placement setting that will give students opportunities to demonstrate learning outcomes. Some examples might include you choosing which patients they see in nutrition care placements, choosing which projects students will work on in a population health placement. You then provide day-to-day supervision of students during their placements and ensure the learning experiences you are offering in your placement setting are giving students the opportunities they need to meet placement learning outcomes, working with the student and us at UBC as well to modify placement experiences as needed to adapt to a student's progress. All of this is done with the intention of providing a safe and supportive learning environment. You'll be interacting with and observing students through their placement, and through that, you will share performance feedback. Feedback includes you contributing to the student evaluation discussion during the evaluation meetings at midpoint and end of each placement, as well as the ongoing regular feedback discussions you will have with students on a more daily basis. We ask that you get in touch with us at UBC if there's anything to discuss about a student placement, whether it be concerns, feedback, general questions, or to let us know how well it's going. The earlier we hear from you, the better. UBC course instructors, when I say this, I'm referring to the UBC Dietetics educator team of myself, Allie, Gordon, and Kara. Our roles have substantially changed in the new program structure in that we act as instructors and advisors during courses. We provide direct teaching during placements on Thursdays via Zoom, so we gather with the students weekly all year. Students will be placed in a cohort of students of groups of around 10 and assigned to one of us as their primary instructor, who will be their primary contact during their full year of practice education. The student's direct contact will also be your direct contact when the student is in their placement with you. Your student will be able to tell you who their primary instructor is on day one of their placement, so that you will know who to get in touch with for any student placement or performance needs. Therefore, any issues that arise during placements that require student support and decision-making, so performance issues, for example, you and the student should contact us. We receive and review student evaluations, we mark their assignments, we ultimately determine if a student passes their practice education course based on their placement performances, their assignments, and their time in class with us on Thursdays. We directly support you as preceptors too, and really encourage you to contact us early and often. We also work with many partner organizations. Partner organizations are the sites that you are all working in. These can range from individually owned private practices to all of the large health authorities in BC. The type and role of the placement organizations that students are placed in really vary. We couldn't place students without the support of the organizations that you work in, that you own, and that you work from. Depending on the type of placement organization that you work in, they may help identify and schedule preceptors and ensure all onboarding activities are met that are needed to get students on site as examples. This will depend on where you work, but your placement site may also be able to help identify site-based policies and resources for students to complete in the first couple of weeks of their placement in order to support their transition to your site. This slide has some key resources for your reference, and you're welcome to take a look at them if you would like more information. As I wrap up, I want to acknowledge that there are a lot of changes in practice education this year. Change can often feel like a storm, including both the chaos and the unknown as it happens, and also finding the light and beauty as new beginnings unfold. Thank you for being on this journey with us. We could not be doing this without you. A majority of the changes we have made are a result of feedback over the years from you and students. We have a preceptor experience survey that we will send out a couple of times during the practice education year so that we can capture your experiences close to when they happen and be sure that we create opportunity for all of you to give feedback. Thank you for participating in Preceptor Orientation and for supporting the UBC Dietetics undergraduate students.